Next up is the hand. The hand is the most important bit of UI in the Cartographer module. If the hand is not visible, you can summon it with the pencil icon on the sidebar here. All the major asset related settings are hosted on it. We will discuss the hand in 3 parts: the left side quick toggle menu here, the selected item bracket with its attached list menu, and the function buttons to the right. So first up is the toggle hidden. Clicking this icon, the selected item will turn invisible on the player's map. So when I click on that, it will disappear and the button will turn turquoise. It's the same color as the overlay. When you're holding the Alt button, you can see that this cage is now hidden. To unhide this item, you can click on the button there, or we can make it invisible and then unhide it with clicking the button again. So toggle locked. Clicking this icon, the selected item will be locked and it will become unclickable on the map. So now if I try to pick it up, I can't. Unless I'm holding shift, and then I'm able to pick up this object and I can see on the hand that it is locked. If I hold the Alt key, I can also see a locked overlay on the item now. To unlock an object, I can just click on the overlay and it will turn unlocked, or I can unlock it through the hand as well. If you select multiple items by clicking and dragging, then in the inspector you can see that there are 3 items now selected, all 3 cages. We are able to group these objects together by clicking this button here, and then these 3 objects will behave as one. To degroup them, I just need to select them and degroup them, and now I can move them individually once again. Another way of selecting multiple objects is holding the Control key and clicking on the assets one by one. When you group an asset and right click on it, you're able to create a group preset. What that does is you're able to make this group into a new object. I will say 3 cages, and now saving that. In my content library selection, now I have this group object as a separate entity and I can place it on the map. Group presets also work the same way as grouped objects, so I can ungroup them on the map and move them around individually. Next up is the selected item bracket. You can see it over here. This query shows what's currently equipped in your hand and it's ready for placement. So if I change the placement type here to single object, I can put this object down again. The next one is the selected item bracket. It's right over here. So if I click on or select an object, it will show me what is currently equipped in my hand, and now I'm able to select a placement type and just place more of that object. If I click and drag and select multiple objects, it will show me that it is the first object out of 6 on the map, which I can open down here, and if I'm hovering over these individual assets, it will point them out on the map one by one. If you're changing brightness, opacity, it will be reflected on the thumbnail image on the hand, so you know how your item will look like before you place them. Once you selected multiple items and you want to deselect some of them, just click on the X button next to them, so you can end up in your hand with the object that you actually wanted to select. Alrighty, we are moving on to the build options, which is right over here. When you select an item, you can place it 3 major ways: object, tiled, or line. These do branch out to single object placement or fill or brush. Let me show you how those work. And then we have tiled placement with tile, brush and polygon, or line placement with straight, polygon, circle or freeform. When we are choosing single object, it will just pick up the object and wherever I click on the map, it will place it. But if I go on fill, then I will need to click and drag a larger area, and that can be customized over here, just over the hand. It says density and 50 at the moment. I will just increase the density and click and drag, and now it will be filled with the object that I selected. If I click and drag holding shift, then these items will be randomized in a cluster. We also have a brush placement. It also have a brush width subsetting and a density subsetting. So now if I'm just clicking and holding, wherever I'm pulling the brush, it will populate that area with the selected object. If I'm holding shift, it will randomize the appearance of them. This is a really good tool to make quick forests. Another trick with this placement, if I choose a tree and another couple of different types of trees, so now I can hold, control and multi-select a couple of different objects. There we go. Now I can see that my hand is now filled with 5 different items. I'm gonna go into Object, Brush, and I'm gonna hold Shift to randomize. And as I'm pulling around, it will populate from the hand, randomize my objects, and place them around the map. Next up is line placement. I will choose a line to demonstrate this, for example this carpet. So when I select line placement, I can pull a straight line, like that. When I click on a straight line, it will show me 3 points of edit. If I'm gonna move the middle one, I'm able to actually bend this object. The only way to bend objects is in straight line mode. And I can also further rearrange these if I want this carpet go from here to here and straighten it up a bit. Then I can just adjust these points. The next type of line placement is polygon. Now with this, whenever I click on the map, it will create a polygon point. Once I click for the first time, it will start the polygon placement, and then I will click here, and here, and here. And now, with the right click, I can finish the placement, and I created a polygon. If I click on this polygon, it will show me the polygon points, and I can rearrange them to finalize my shape. The third line placement option is circle. With circle, I need to click and drag to draw a circle. And the fourth is freeform. I click on freeform and I use the line placement as a pencil. So once I click and drag, I'm just going to be drawing onto the map. So if I go into tiled and tile placement, when I click and drag, I'm able to pull a texture onto the map. The second type is a brush placement. With brush placement, we have the option for a soft brush, brush width, and opacity. If I disable soft brush, my brush will have hard edges. The soft brush will be faded. I can adjust the brush width and turn down the opacity so it blends in a lot more. And then we have polygon placement as well. It works very similarly to the line placement. I just click the polygon points and it will fill a shape with the current opacity settings. So if I turn that to 100% and hold Ctrl to snap to grid, then I can finalize my polygon placement like that. Right click will initiate the placement. Moving on to image manipulation tools. If I click on this brazier, we can change the color and opacity. So hue, the overall color, brightness, saturation, the tint, so we can give it a custom color, opacity, or just reset it to its original state. We can also flip objects horizontally or vertically, or mirror them. And we can set up a chroma key too. There we go. We get our image, we go into chroma key, and we enable it. We set a color. So we have this color eyedropper here, which we can use. There we go. So we can see that it already got rid of most of the green. There's a green outline on the cat now. So if you go into set tolerance, then click and drag this button, then we can get rid of that green outline. We want to make sure that we're not overdoing it. And also something else that helps with this is if we change the opacity, we change the saturation down a bit. So it's not that strong green anymore. But there we go. Now we got a transparent background image. Alright, when it comes to tile placement objects, we can adjust the texture scale or rotation. So we can basically just zoom in or out on that texture, or rotate it. There we go. Make this bigger a bit for this next trick, because we can also enable noise. So what noise is, it's going to pull a pattern over this texture and make it transparent there. There we go. Well, this is probably not how you want it to look, so we can change the noise scale, and the lower you use, the better it usually looks. So you can see that based on the noise pattern, it nicely fades this texture into what's currently there. So let's pull this up for the whole map here, and you can see how it nicely just blends this texture all around. If you're gonna change the saturation and maybe bring down the brightness a bit, then we have this texture now nicely over our whole map. So that's what noise is good for. And the other thing is with noise that it is randomly generated. So if you keep clicking it, it will always look slightly different. And of course you can also mess around a bit with the scale. There you go. So that's tiled for line object. This bridge is line object. We can adjust the line width, edit the points, or reverse the line, so it basically flips it. The tapering is for the end. So this is where this line object has started, and this is where it finishes. So the line start taper will skew this object down on one end. Or if we go here and go end taper, then we'll skew the end of it there. And then for texture, we got Worldspace or repeatable. So anything that has been produced for the toolkit by us as a line object is meant to be repeatable, because repeatable is a seamless object that is seamless on two ends, and you can draw an infinite line with that seamless object. You can also place walls from textures. The reason why we added this feature is because if you're trying to place something with polygon tool, and I will just show you with that one. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can have these distortions with the texture because it is trying to follow the shape. But if you grab this and you change the line texture to Worldspace, it will look all nice. And then we got the flat color for last. So we just choose a color, close it up, and I'm able to place that color in any way I like. There you go. Onto the layering tools. There are two layers in the toolkit, the terrain layer and the object layer. Anything you place on the map will be ordered on a list of these two layers. The terrain layer hosts all tiles or textures, shadows, terrain level lines like rivers or roads, and some terrain level decoratives like the fallen leaves or potholes, or anything that's basically under the grid. So as you see over here, the grid is over the textures, and anything like this armor is over the grid here. If I move it onto layering tools and I put this on top of this pile here, I go into layers and I can move this down one, so on the object layer it's going to go under that second object and then goes under that third object. I can move it back to the top of the pile, or I can go one up or one down. If I need to send it to the last layer, I just go to move to bottom. And if I would like to put it to the terrain layer, I just click that and it will be on the terrain layer. It's important to note that objects on the terrain layer can't cast shadows. So if I want this to cast shadow, I need to bring it onto the object layer, and then I can put a drop shadow on it. And there we go. So you can see a little drop shadow just behind it there. But as soon as I move it to the terrain layer, that shadow will not exist anymore. There are also levels. The levels are the physical levels on your map. So if I close this, this is my level 0. I can go one level up to the next level of the dungeon, or one more level up to the top level of the dungeon. So if I go to the bottom and I've got this mail, I can send it one level up, and then if I change the level, it will be here, or I can send it back one level down. And there it is. Next up is the lighting tools, just down here. You will find the light and shadow settings here. It's important to note that lights that are close to each other and overlapping, they make each other much stronger. And the lights are also much stronger during nighttime. So if I'm gonna go into time of day and change this to nighttime mode, I can see that this light is very strong. And especially if I grab this and move it closer to another one, the light sort of adds up. Now if I go into lighting options, I can turn a light on or off. I can set the radius for this light, which is currently 4.4 squares, but I can change to 5 square or just down to 1 square. And then it will update. And then we can change the color of the light. So if we move this cursor on the color wheel while clicking, it will change the color. It's important to note that the further up you are, the dimmer the light is, and the further down you are, the stronger the light is and becomes more unnatural or white. So I want to go somewhere around here. You can save the color here, so you can adjust that later for other objects as well. If you have Fog of War enabled, then in the lighting settings you can set light through fog and turn it on. So within the radius of the light it will clear the Fog of War. I can turn it off now. You can also emit darkness. If you turn darkness on, it will emit darkness for the radius of the light source. For shadows, we have a couple of options here. And I will quickly pick up another object for it. And turn off the... Let's go to daytime. Turn off the Fog of War. Grab this helmet. So for shadows, we have block light, which is on the outline of the object now. If I'm moving this light around the object, it will cast a shadow. We can allow light through, so that will disable the block light. And we can have drop shadow on or off. You will see the drop shadow is just around the object there. So if I turn it off, it's off. And you will see it on the terrain layer when you turn it on. Effects are mainly for in-depth animation controls or animating static objects. So if I click on this fire animation and I go into effects, then I can, I'll move it down a bit so you can see it better. I can play or stop the animation. I can adjust the frame rate, which is 30 frames per second at the moment, or play it backwards. There we go. Or forward. It can be triggered. So I need to click play and it will play through once. Or looped. So it continuously loops. I can also set the frame directly. So I can cycle through the different frames of this animation and leave it at that, for example, if I needed to. Next up, I click on this video. I can stop it, play it, let it go on a loop, or play it once. If there is sound on the video, there's not on this one, I can turn it on or off. And I can adjust the volume if there's any sound on the video. Now I move on to an object. I click on this object and I can add effects on it. I can make it shake. Turn it on. And now this tree will be shaking. I can turn the shake off or set the shake intensity. There you go. I can make an object rotate. I can adjust the rotate speed and direction. I can make it rotate around its center. So in this case, if I hold shift, it will display the center point of this object. But if I move it out here, it's gonna put the center point there. Alright, buddy. Just stop. Just stop. Alright, so with this object now, I can go into rotate. I can turn it on. I can adjust the rotation speed. Or turn the rotation off. I can rotate this object around its center or pivot. The center is the middle of the graphics that you chose, but the pivot point is different. If I click on an object and hold shift, it will display the pivot point. This is a point that the object rotates around even when I'm just using the normal rotation function. But if I'm gonna go and rotate around the center and turn it on, the pivot point will rotate with it, so the object will rotate around its axis. But if I go rotate around the pivot point, then suddenly the object will be rotating around this middle point. Next up is float. If I turn float on, the object starts to float back and forth. I can set the float intensity and the loop time. If I choose something that has been tiled or a texture, I can make it scroll. If I turn it on, the tile will start to move. You can turn it off, or when it's on, you can define the speed and the axis. And then last but not least, the lighting. So if an object has lighting enabled, you can turn flickering on. So if I turn on flicker, how the light is not even, it's flickering. And I can turn the flickering off, and then it's continuous light. And then lastly, the token options. So if we are placing a token down on the map from Encyclopedia, so in Encyclopedia we will need to go into notes and create a note as a character, which I've done here. I click and drag and drop that onto the map. Once I click on that, it will show up with the token options. I can activate the link, which means that it brings up the note about the character. I can do the same by double clicking on them or using middle click. And the other function for this is putting a soundscape down, an ambience. So if I'm going to be using the storm outside preset and drop it here, then clicking on the ambience shows me the token options, and I can set a radius to it, a fall off radius, or set the volume. So what this basically does is, if I put down the ambience on the map, I can set this to be a location based audio, and if I click on that, it will show me the radius of it. So within this radius, if we are centering our camera or view on it, like so, then you can hear the audio getting stronger and then falling off. Clicking here, I'm able to set that radius up so it can be larger or smaller. Set the fall off radius to be larger or smaller. That's when it's a bit more silent. And I can set the overall volume. Of the location-based audio. When it comes to the Arkenbar, it can be very useful for the Cartographer module. So for example, I can grab any assets from my Cartographer content selection and then click and drag it onto the Arkenbar. So now, if I click on that, I can just place it onto the map. We can click and drag the name of a map to make a shortcut of it and instantly load it when we need it. Or open up our map browser and just click and drag maps that we want onto the Arkenbar as well.